Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, on what was a pleasant mid 40-degree sunny Saturday afternoon. Around 2 o'clock I sat down to shoot this video, and here it is after 6 p.m. and I'm finally getting around to it. Sometimes life happens and here we are. I don't venture very far, but when I do, it's usually right down here in the shop. The other night, I was watching YouTube videos and fell asleep. That's not a unique scenario that happens just about every night. And when I woke up, I was watching a channel called the Little Victory Fab Company. I'm a subscriber of his. I think he's in California. I could be wrong on that. He does a lot of 480E stuff. He makes and sells transmission fixtures that he's actually blowing out and not going to make anymore. So he's a kind of an interesting dude. And in this particular video, I believe it was labeled a Bellhousing shortage or something to that effect. It caught my attention, and he was online surfing for a Turbo 400 SFI Bellhousing. And he found very little stock anywhere. He found 6 of a different ATI part number on Summit Racing, and he didn't go into what the difference was, and that's what we're gonna do. So, I have other videos out there in the Turbo 400 playlist, which is about 103 videos strong. Some of them even worth watching. So I did installs on probably all 3 of the major brands, which are the JW Ultra Bell, and that will remain my third choice. If I can't get my hands on anything else, then I'll use one of those. And I went over the reasons in my comparison video. I've never spoke to JW. My buddy's a dealer for him. And I just think it's big and bulky. They charge you extra to leave this tab on the top. You can see where they cut it off and polish it and sell the Bellhousing for less. And I don't like the hardware it comes with. But all in all, it was probably the original. It's still a good unit. And I'm not, what does everybody say, salty about it? I think there's better choices. I like equally the BTE because, again, I've gone over that. Just a brief synopsis for those that haven't watched the video. The BTE Bellhousing has an adapter that goes from the Turbo 400 8-bolt pump bolt pattern, which is what this is. The little adapter goes out to the Reed SFI case. So should you buy a BTE housing, put it on your OEM case, Turbo 400, and then you come up with a Reed case, you don't have to buy another Bellhousing. You just take your little adapter off and you're good to go. So that is awesome. As far as the whole package, though, you cannot beat the ATI. It's more compact. I mentioned in my other video, if you think it's a big deal about the flange being a perfect gap, well, that doesn't exist with the the ATI housing, because the way it's made, it's a mile from the case. So it's easy to see if you have any interference, and there's no fitment issues really, because just do a nice job cutting it and you're gonna have a 1/2-inch gap, so it really doesn't matter. And it is labeled right on it, small block, LS, LT, and big block. There's no compromises, no extra different Bellhousing to pay more for. It's really nice. It comes with, and I use on all brand Bellhousings, the gasket that goes between the Bellhousing and the front of the pump. It looks like a Turbo 400 pump gasket, but there's no fluid passages cut in it. It's just the 8 holes. And their hardware kit are actually flange bolts, and they just use a Turbo 400 front pump bolt washer to seal it. So you don't have to use any sealer to put this on. You don't have to deal with sealer down the road when you service the transmission. You don't have to deal with a bunch of O-rings, sticking the bolt through and trying to balance an O-ring on there and get it set down on the case. It's just a better rig, all in all. So they sell 2 of them, and I did not. This is where this is going to depart from any video I've done before. I almost forgot. ATI also gives you plugs for the 7th and 8th bolt hole. If you're going to install this on a 6-bolt case, then you plug the 2 extra holes. No other housing even mentions that. If you're only going to run 7 bolts, you plug 1 hole. And in their instructions, which is pretty thorough, they say they're good with running it on a 6, 7, or 8 bolt case. Obviously, the more bolts, the merrier, but it will go on any of them. So, they sell 2 of these. And the other night, after watching the video from the Little Victory Fab Company, I actually went on Summit Racing, and just like he was looking at on his screen, that must have been a pretty fresh video, because he was showing they had stock of 6 of these, but he didn't differentiate between this and the other part number. And I went on Summit Racing and they had a stock of 6, and I bought 2 of them, knowing full well what I was getting myself into. And what does that mean? They sell 2 versions of this. One is a direct fit onto the front of your TH400 pump. It attaches flat on the front of it, just like the other brands. You cut the case down so nothing hits, and you bolt it on. This one, they will either, you could send them your OEM case, and they will machine out, if you look at it close, and I'll give you a close-up, there's a ridge right here. It goes, what, 3/4 of the way around, not even. They want you, and they don't give you any extra instructions with this. You can look it up online. They have a TH350 case they're doing the same thing to. This case fits a TH350 as well. You have to, A, send them back your OEM case and they'll cut this groove for you. Or you can attempt it yourself. Now, I have a mill. It just barely fits a TH400 case with the Bellhousing cutoff. It's not a CNC, so you have an X and a Y axis, and you got to cut a circle, a perfect circle. I believe it's 1/8 of an inch wide, most of the way around your case. It's 100 thousandths. So you're cutting into the edge of the pump boss, not quite down to the O-ring. And the instructions I read on the TH350 case, they want it loose enough so you go beyond, so you could actually rock it on the case. And my question is, what good is it? If I was skilled enough to cut this, why do I need it? There's no issue with the other attachment style, especially when using all 8 bolts. I mean, it's a tight fit. Everything has to be perfect. I don't hear or see of anybody complaining that there was a problem with alignment or the Bellhousing falling off. If that happens, you probably didn't install it correctly. But they have a reason they don't expand on, and when you buy this part number, let me give you the part number. Sorry about that. It's an ATI 2000044A, and the description is Chevy Bell direct fit SFI OEM case modified. The direct fit case does not say modified. You don't have to do any modifications other than cutting the Bellhousing off. So be aware when you're buying it that you have extra steps to do. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to, and I've been meaning to do this for a while, I'm going to make an adapter for my mill so I can tram the table, you know, the actual bed of the lathe, because, now watch my head, a mill, you can tilt the head while I look at the camera. You can tilt the head this way. The table stays the same, but you can tilt the head. You can also nod the head. And there's a scale on the side of it. There's bolts you have to loosen up, and a worm gear you can turn to do both functions. But then you have to get it back true again, in tram as they call it, T-R-A-M. So I'm gonna make a rig so I can easily tram it. I never have I tram the vise when I take it off and on, but I've never trammed the table. I'm going to, because I need it to be accurate, and then I'm just gonna cut this off. I can touch off my end mill on this surface, bolt this right down to the table, and I can work my way around and just cut that off, and then it's just like the other housing that I don't have any trouble with. I would pursue cutting this if I thought it was worthwhile, but I just don't see its purpose or what good it's gonna do. If it keyed in, you had to cut it exactly, but when they tell you, when I read that it had to rock, or it should rock, so it's bigger than the circle, there's no real strength, you know, from above the O-ring on the case, so I'm sure this was somebody's better idea. It's just not mine, so that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm okay with it. Sometimes when I think about doing something like that, I feel like a failure, but in this case, I feel like I'm just making it like the ones that I'm used to. And in this case, I have not checked for stock since Wednesday night when I ordered these. I don't believe it's a long-term thing. I mean, right before Christmas, well, after Thanksgiving, before Christmas, I bought a bunch of BTE housings, and they had to wait 3 weeks. They were coming in. They had some machine work to do to them. ATI says that they cast and machine theirs right here in America. BTE might be offshore. JW, I don't know. And the ProComp stuff, I don't even keep track of. So, it will actually be a fun little project. I like doing machine work, and worst case scenario, oh, that reminds me. Worst case scenario, in this case, I ruin a $300 Bellhousing. Slightly less, actually, if you get any kind of discount with Jegs or Summit. BTE and ATI, throughout this whole, you know, parts shortage thing, supply chain, whatever you want to call it, they have held their prices. You can still buy either one for, let's call it $300. While shopping the other night, I saw a JW, $534. With tax and shipping, that's almost 2 of these. You know, close enough. It's 7/8 of one anyway, or 7/8 of 2 of them, so that's some crazy math there, huh? Well, I'm a hell of an estimator. Actually pretty good at math too, as long as I write it down. So, that kind of sickens me, and I don't know why. Again, I don't communicate with JW. Maybe I should. They probably don't care. They're ultra. Anytime anybody mentions an aftermarket Bellhousing, they have to follow it up by Ultra Bell. It's like you can't say 383 without saying Stroker. That always makes me laugh. That's it for tonight. I hope you enjoy your Saturday night. The stars are out. And all melting that occurred today over the copious ice that I already have in my driveway is now frozen again. And it's treacherous. Not as bad as this morning. I almost went down. We had a little skiff of snow over that sheer ice. Nothing more fun than that feeling of, whoop, almost went down. I fall about once a year. I'm going to try to avoid it this year. So, have a good night. Talk to you soon.